Good morning, everybody. Here I can see you all popping in one at a time.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. So I am going to initially mute everybody. Just because I know it doesn't sound very warm and welcoming. I'm sorry, I'm saying good morning and welcome, and now I'm putting you all on mute. But the more people that we tend to have on these webinars, I think we've all experienced it now, it can get a little bit noisy in the background. So I'll keep you on mute, but that doesn't mean I don't want to hear from anybody. We've got this wonderful chat facility as well. So as we go along, I'll be asking you to share your thoughts, your opinions, pop some things into the chat. But before I crack on any further, I will just kind of be honest and say I am recording this. I'm finding that I'm getting better at remembering to record this. I can have lots of people will sign up, but then I always have a handful of people say, oh, I can't attend. Can you send me the recording and the slides afterwards? So just want to be honest with everybody and say you are being recorded. And then what I'll do afterwards is send you the slides and the recording out afterwards. I'm just letting some more people come along in as they join us. So thank you everybody for taking an hour out of your time today. I hope what I'm going to do is to give you something that's interesting and informative and enough for you to take something away today, for you to start to put something into practice in your own organisations or with your own clients. And today it's all about beyond reboarding. How and what do we need to do to drive our organisation's growth post-COVID-19? I'll just be very honest and say from the start, absolutely getting our workplaces safe and physically changed to accommodate our people to come back to work is absolutely critical and important. But I won't be talking about that today because although that's important, I think there's more stuff that we need to be doing to, at the same time as well. So let's start off, I thought, by just kind of getting to know who's out here. I thought would be a nice way to start off is just to use the chat function, which if you're on a laptop is probably towards the bottom. If you're on a phone or an iPad or something, it might be towards the sides, or you might have to fiddle about to find it. But use the chat function just to tell us your name and a bit about what you do. You don't need your life story unless you want to share that with us. But the other thing I'm interested in understanding is, with the exception of reboarding, what are your organisations or your clients, if you work in that way with your clients, what are the strategic priorities that you're facing right now? As I said, aside from reboarding, that might be taking up a lot of our time, but what else? What else is on your agenda in terms of big ticket strategic priorities? If you could pop that in the function, what I'll do whilst you're doing that is, I suppose I'll go first, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me and who I am and what I'm doing here today. So I looked at this photo and I thought, oh my God, doesn't my hair look different right now? I think maybe we're all feeling a little bit lockdown drained, but that is me. I'm Rhiannon Stafford, and I run Blue Great Talent. And as it says there, we're a people development business. What that means is that we work with organisations who want to grow or transform, but by developing their people, their leaders, behaviours and cultures. And I set up Blue Great because after about 20 years working in HR and organisational development, I started to go a bit frustrated about how organisations kind of did people management. In that experience I had some great experiences where I felt trusted, really empowered, and I delivered a fantastic job and generally felt pretty awesome. But I also had experiences, and I also experienced the opposite, I suppose. I'd been micromanaged, told I wasn't good enough or didn't fit in around here. And generally in those situations, I delivered some pretty poor pieces of work. So I started to figure there's got to be a better way of doing this. We have got to do things differently in terms of how we manage people in organisations. So I set up Blue Great and started my mission to show how I believe that really harnessing the power of your people can make your business or your organisation grow. So how do we do that here in Blue Great? Well, I suppose we've got 4 main service streams, and I'll quickly whiz around these. When I talk about assessment and stretch, that for me is about helping you know more about your people to match them to jobs that they're most likely to excel at and feel really engaged in. I think we've got to make sure that we understand our people and match them to the right roles to really get the best out of them, but then in turn that really gives the best for our organisation. We move around and think about change. Well, I think I got frustrated with organisations that view change management as an event, as stuff that we do every now and again. Change should just be about the way that we do things around here. So, and particularly in this kind of climate these days where change genuinely is the constant. So I like to help organisations think about change in a different way and help them manage themselves through change almost on a constant basis. Now, when it comes to coaching, I'm really on a bit of a mission to help organisations see the value of coaching and to take it out of this exclusive domain that it used to sit in. Coaching is not just for executives. We help coaching, bring coaching to everybody in the workplace, in particular coaching to managers. And then in terms of leadership and talent, well, I think building great leaders is really critical to any organisation's success, as is making sure we've got the next generation of leaders coming through also. So a big piece around what we do in Blue Grade is developing confident, capable and inspiring, authentic managers who can really drive great employee experiences and amazing cultures and great workplace performance. But for me, I think everything that underpins everything that we do is driving and trying to create this employee experience. So there's a little bit about me. Let me have a look at the chat. This is always the worst thing, isn't it? Because the first thing someone says to you is, oh, tell me about yourself, and it's a little bit scary. But let's see who we've got out there today then. So we got Nicola at the start. Oh, Warwick Castle, Nicola. Now, what genuinely an interesting place to be right now. It must be really, really difficult. I'm assuming you guys are still closed down. So what do you say there about Nicola? What's your priorities? Re-engage and engagement. You've always had events. Now you're hoping to try to re-engage employees. How can we do this after COVID-19? So welcome, Nicola. Then we've got Claire, Director of Clearwater HR. Your clients, as well as focusing on reboarding and getting back into a focus on their growth. Brilliant. Their growth and people development. And you're absolutely right, there's an awful lot more we've got to focus on there than just reboarding. Now, who have we got here? Emma, hey, great, fellow leadership development consultant. Oh, currently at NTU, so is that, tell me more, what is NTU? National Teachers Union? Or have I got that one wrong completely? Let's see. Still going through and expecting to carry on reshaping expectations. Rona, hello Rona, someone I know out there. Interim finance and business consultancy. Again, wanted to try to focus on your clients and how you can help them do the right things going forward. I did get NTU wrong then, thanks Nicholas, sorry, Nottingham Trent University. Oh, Mark, I recognise that name. I think we might have met each other in the past. Investment consulting team leader. How can you help keep your colleagues engaged post-COVID after the big adjustment to working from home in particular? So I've got all these messages now popping up and I'm struggling to keep track of everybody. So we've got Nicola out there, another HR consultant. Positive cultures you're looking at there. Liana, now looking at new business opportunities. Oh, Karen is a name I've come across. Hello again, Karen. Just going into a new international role. That's really good. That's really good to know. Well done. Oh, and Emma. Actually, there's a couple of names that I recognise popping up here as well. But it looks like generally people are starting to talk about how can businesses grow. We not just looking at bringing people back into the workplace. I'm seeing kind of growth, engagement. They're the kind of things that I think are on your agendas at the moment, which is absolutely perfect. And as weird as it might sound in this strange time, absolutely need to be on our agendas right now also. So welcome everybody, thank you very much. I'm going to keep checking the chat as we go along, because it would be great to hear, not just from me for the next kind of 45 minutes, please share your thoughts, your experiences. If there's something I'm talking about that you've got experience of trying or doing, please tell everybody as well. It's a great way to learn from each other. But my aim is to try to give you something, some thoughts that you can take away and apply in your own organisations or with your own clients. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to move that chat facility so I can see my own screen. And let's just kind of start off with, so I've been battling with this as in my head. Are we really going back to normal, or are we really going back full stop? Well, you'll soon kind of grasp. No, I don't think it is a question of going back. Even though our organisations are starting to reopen and we are starting to see employees going back to work or returning to the workplaces, because many of our employees have always worked and now just need to work in a different way. And some people want to jump back into the old routines and old commutes. But we are going to be greeted by an awful lot of change, because most offices, a little bit like this cartoon, will have had to make some physical differences to account for social differences. So I don't think we really are going back, and I don't think we really are trying to create a new normal. I don't think that's really helpful to think about in that way. So aside from the physical changes, I want to kind of talk to you about some of the other changes that we need to make within our organisations to really help us grow and not just survive, but really thrive and grow. So but having said that, I am going to go back in time slightly and just revisit something that I initially talked about and found back in February this year. And I think this kind of articulates or shows for me why I think COVID-19 has just basically accelerated changes that were already happening. So this report that came out from the Conference Board's C-Suite Challenge 2020, it was part of a global piece of research. I'm just going to focus here today on the European issues that they found. And they categorised their finding into these hot button issues, external and internal. There's a whole wider report there that goes into global, international. Because we're sitting in Europe today, I thought I'd focus on Europe. And this is what senior leaders were saying were their issues or their hot button issues, things that were driving change or they were thinking about because of from an external environment and things that were going on internally in their organisation. This is just an extract from that. And if you have a look, I suppose what struck me is there's lots of concerns about talent, skills shortages, kind of disruptive technologies, building innovative cultures, nurturing talents. They were all kind of top stress points back then. I love the fact that there was right at the top of the list a risk of recession, so controlling costs. But you know what I'm thinking? None of this has gone away. In fact, I do think some of this is now kind of here and now. So I really think what COVID-19 has done is not changed things for us, but it's just accelerated changes that were already happening and brought them far closer to us now. And that's why I kind of wanted to start off with, let's maybe reframe. I don't think this is about going back or that COVID-19 has changed this. It hasn't. All it's done is accelerated stuff that was going on beforehand. And for me, that's the big reason why I think we have to still think about the stuff that was going on for us beforehand, and we can't just park that and think just about reboarding and getting people safe back into work. Absolutely, that's kind of step one, but we also need to pick up what we knew from the past and really address it now. Reboarding is not enough. If we want to transform our organisations, we really need to focus on some of these issues. Now, interestingly, because for me that's like, well, that's great, that's the C-suite, so that suggests there's some really big organisations out there as well. So I've just kind of gone and done some research. I've spoken to some of my clients or some of the people that I would generally work with, more so than these big global corporates. And these are the kind of anecdotal feedback that I've been hearing recently as well. So even if you think, well, these big corporate organisations, that's not me, that's not my world or my client's world. From looking at these kind of feedback, I think there's still a lot of commonalities. There's still some common messages that we're hearing, that it's not just we need to focus on reboarding, because the climate that our big organisations or our smaller SMEs operate in, well, they're the same climates, aren't they? So we've got the same issues that affect us. We just articulate them in a slightly different way. And once we've got back into the office, it's kind of, so then what? I think these are some of the strategic issues we should be thinking about now, not just getting back into the office. I just wonder, pop in the chat, how does some of what you've just seen in terms of maybe the C-suite from the bigger organisations, and what have you just seen here from the SMEs that I work with, how do they show up for you? Are there commonalities? Can you see some of this going on in your organisation as well? Just give us your thoughts in the chat box. Share what you're experiencing. I'll carry on to my next few slides, and then I'll come back in a few minutes and have a look at what you're popping in the chat box. How does all of this resonate for you in your world right now? So if that's the climate, that's where we are, what does it mean for us as HR or people professionals? I like to try to keep things simple, because at heart I'm a Welsh farmer, so I do need to keep things simple. And I think there's probably 4 big areas that we need to look at. And what I like about these 4 areas is that there isn't one place to start or finish. I'm not saying you've got to start here and move around, and it's not a linear progression. But all of these 4 areas really do affect each other in some way. And actually, I think if you really want to make the biggest impact in your organisation, you want to address something in all of these 4 areas. Because addressing one area starts to impact on another area. And you don't have to do everything. But I think these are the areas that you need to kind of look at and take what's important for you and your organisations or your clients right now. So these are the 4 things I'm going to talk to you about today. In no particular order, but I am going to start off with talking about job design. And by that I mean that's the how and the where of jobs and how they are done and where they are done. So just moving on to that job design bit. Again, you'll see that some of these things are really simple. Now for us kind of HR professionals, this might not fit very comfortably. For you guys that haven't got an HR background, it might feel like, oh, that's great. During my career in HR, I learned all about job evaluation, probably something that some people are familiar with, and that's all about determining the size and the scope of the job, to put it into a little box and ultimately to apply a market rate salary band to it. It was really important that we did that we designed jobs with that much detail that we were able to categorise them and put them into boxes, basically. And all of this was backed by science, clearly defined the size and the scope of the job, and all of that kind of made equal pay claims easier to defend. But you know, what I think it's done for us though is kind of put these chains almost around these jobs. It's made us create some very unflexible, immovable, concrete jobs. And I think I first experienced this right early in my career. When I first left university, I went to work for Tesco, and that was my first proper graduate job. Now, back then, in the days, in Tesco, if you worked in the stores, cashiers were paid at a higher rate than the shop floor assistants, basically, because you were handling cash, and we thought the size and the scope of that job was bigger. So when shop floor assistants were called to go to the checkouts to clear the queues, which believe me is a daily basic occurrence, my wages clerks had to then calculate how long each person sat on a checkout for and operated the checkout and put through a manual payment for them. Basically what we had done is create a most inflexible workforce that we couldn't move around the store easily to respond to peaks and troughs in demand without having some kind of manual intervention. Okay, so that might sound like a very small and simple exercise, but this idea of creating size and scopes of jobs and job evaluation can actually create a really inflexible workforce. Fast forward to today, or these days, and there's a lovely little story that I found out about Bank of America, and just they have been able to move more than 3,000 employees from across their bank into positions where they needed people the most, and that was fielding calls from customers and small businesses. So they've been able to move their workforce around to where it's really needed. We need to do more of that. And I really think doing more of that means us in HR questioning some of the ways that we construct job descriptions, job titles, because it's really confining people and making it hard for you to move your resources around the organisation. And I would kind of add to that, I think we've got an employment law structure in the UK that reinforces that unflexibility as well. But if people are at the heart of how work gets done, we need to think differently about how we design jobs, make it more easier for us to flex and move people around to where we really need them in the business. Because let's face it, this fourth industrial revolution, it isn't an economy based on industrial skills that might have benefited from clarity of jobs. In the new world, we're an economy based on service, an economy based on bringing our human skills to work. So I'm questioning, why do we need these jobs and job demarcation and such strict job design these days? We've seen how many jobs really can be carried out away from a central office location. And I suspect that we're going to want some of that to carry on. It's been an issue that's been bubbling away, I think, in organisations for a while, this ability to work remotely. So what can you do on a practical level to kind of break some of these chains and to create a more fluid workforce? Oh, I've moved forward one too many, beg your pardon. Right, so here's 3 things I think you can think of straight away when you're designing and thinking about jobs. Make the work and the jobs more portable across the organisation. And that goes right back to the way that we think about jobs and how we design jobs and even how we create job descriptions. And I started with an example of Tesco. Well, look how the discount retailers, so I don't know, the Lidls and the Aldi's, now they don't employ people like Tesco traditionally had them with, you're a cashier, you're a shop floor, you just work in the store and you move around to wherever is needed. That's the kind of thing that we need to think about in our organisations. What can we do to make jobs and work more portable across the organisation? I think we need to look at how we automate, accelerate that automation as well, because by automating some work, we can free up people to move into different areas. So the work that we can automate that's systematic frees up people's times to help to move them into jobs where that need more monitoring, controlling systems, reducing human exposure to at the moment to the virus, but mainly enabling businesses to run more smoothly without service disruptions. We saw some great examples of, I keep coming back to the banks because that's my personal experience here, about how they've automated some of their the ways that they handle calls. You can do an awful lot more online. So when you do really need to speak to a person, some of the easy transactional stuff is done elsewhere. And the third thing in my head, traditionally we've hired people to do a specific job, and then we really haven't done much to tell them about the wider organisation. We hire people into jobs with job titles and we focus on developing them or train them for that job. Let's break that cycle. Right from day one, let's think about bringing people into an organisation and exposing them to as much of the organisation as we can do, so they understand what else is going on. Think about cross-skilling, training people right from day one in other areas, not just in that own area, breaking down some of these barriers. There's 3 things that we could start to think about right now to help make our workforces and our people more flexible so we can move them around. But it does go against some of our traditional HR thinking. And while we're on the topic about jobs, let's move forward and think a bit more about careers in organisations as well. So I think it's time for us to think differently about careers also. This is a kind of a traditional, I know when I left university, this was the traditional career path that I thought I would follow. You kind of leave education at around 25-ish. You have a career, and then you have a longer space to retire. We probably weren't expected to live till 100 then. But I'd suggest that universities are still set up to support this mainly single career path. And so we're still producing people that come out and think, this is what my career is going to be like. In this day and age, that ain't real. We need to start thinking about careers for ourselves, but also for our employees and our workforce to be more like this. We learn. There'll be some kind of formal or required learning, and we'll finish that, and we do finish that a lot earlier than 25 these days. And then we need to think about the time that we're in work, kind of like this cycle. Well, we'll do work and a job of a particular type. Then we need to learn something different because that job has changed, because of technology is changing. So we need to relearn and change, and then go into a different kind of a job or do work in a different way. And then we go on this kind of cycle. See how it's quite different to our more traditional approaches to the career, which is where you went in and you did a career. We need to help, I suppose, ourselves, our next generation of employees, and our current generation of employees to feel comfortable with this type of a career pattern and a career path. And as employers, to help enable that. Now, I'm not saying that we then need to be investing so much in constant training, but I do think we need to make it a day-to-day occurrence almost, to be learning, growing, changing. And yes, as employers, we probably do need to invest more in learning. And I'm using the word learning, not training. There's also the concept of a training course where you send someone away or you go on a program. That doesn't help this ongoing learning, relearning and changing. We need to bring more, we need to accept that the best way of learning is on the job and in the moment. We need to build more of a learning experiences into our day-to-day work. That's going to help people, respond more easily to when we do need them to change, because inevitably their jobs will change, and probably a number of us on our call right now, our jobs might not exist in a number of years. And we need to make it okay for that. We need to build our organisations around that. What's the word? VUCA, isn't it? In an ever-increasing VUCA, volatile, uncertain, changeable, ambiguous. Please someone tell if I got any of that wrong. And let's face it, COVID-19 is a classic example of that. But I also think things like Brexit is also another. This is how we're going to be. So how do we design jobs and then careers to work in this VUCA environment? I do accept as well, though, that a lot of this is going to mean different kinds of skills. And I think that's the next thing I think we should look at then, is what are those critical skills or capabilities that we now need to think about developing in ourselves and in our organisations and our workforces to enable this to happen. If we want to move to a different career path with jobs that are designed for change and agility, we need a different set of skills and capabilities. Now, I will admit, in my past life, I did an awful lot around developing leadership competency frameworks and outlining these are all the skills that are needed. I kind of think differently about this now, because I think we need a different set of skills and capabilities, both leaders, managers, needing a different set, but also our wider teams need a different skill set. And here's just some examples of what I would now genuinely call critical skills and critical capabilities. So what I don't mean here are the individual skills needed in each job. We will still need, when you do a role, to have particular skills to be able to deliver that role. But I'm talking here about what I feel are organisational-wide skills needed to meet strategic challenges. These are almost the common themes that I would kind of strongly argue, wherever your organisation is, whatever it does, in whatever sector, these are the type of skills that I bet you're going to want to have and need in your people in the future. Because if one of our strategic goals is about transformation and change, and that some of those things came through from your chat comments at the start. Here's the kind of stuff that I think we need to be investing our time in. And it's hard, I think, for us now to sit here and think, right, what are the skills that I'm going to need in the future? There's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of knowns. And I think we're going to make ourselves far more marketable as employees, as great consultants, if we have these skills, but we also need to be working to get these skills into our organisations as well. So for me, these are critical skills and capabilities that I felt, given the environment we're working in, pretty much every organisation, every person somewhere really needs these. And this is why I think we need to think differently about skills and learning in organisations and worry less about those particular skills that you might need for the particular job you're doing, and put our focus right now in particular on developing these skills. Because what we're building, I think of it as kind of like layers. Here's like the foundational stuff that everybody needs, but when combined, you know, with job-specific skills, really drives performance and really drives employee engagement as well. So again, where do these skills fit, maybe in your plans right now, or in your development plans right now? I'm just going to stop for a minute because I can see we've got a couple of comments going in the chat box. So I'll stop talking and just have a look at what people are saying. So we've got a comment on the power is shifting a bit more to the employee and how they want to work. Absolutely. Interestingly, though, I've had some people say, oh, we're going into a recession. That employee power's gone. It's now all about the employer, because, you know, in a recession, shouldn't you be grateful that you've got a job? Can't we treat people differently now because they're going to want to stay with us irrespective of how we treat them? I tend to agree with you that I still think the power is more with the employee, but what do people think about that? Should the recession change our attitude and our thinking towards this kind of power relationship? And then Claire's popped in here. We need to be diverse and flexible. Oh, yes. Certainly for me, we have a variety of different clients. Some want to impact their employee engagement by embracing home working. Others, usually more antiquated, I love that, want to get back to their normal ways of working. Yeah. Each give employees headaches. Each therefore mean that as HR professionals, we need to work harder to understand the overall business strategy. Absolutely right there. And isn't that interesting there, Claire, that you say you've got different categories of clients. One who want to embrace engagement, embracing home working, and the others just want to get back to normal. In the next couple of minutes, I'll talk a little bit about the employee engagement and employee experience. But I wonder, Claire, out of those two clients, those two types of clients, which are the ones that are going to be more successful in this new environment now? Those that want to get back to normal, or those that kind of want to work to more what the employee expectations are? And then Karen, oh yeah, what great point. All eyes will be on employers. Employees will look at how they've been supported through COVID. Expectations will be higher, and key talent may look at alternative employers or professions they feel have not been supported. Karen, you know exactly what I'm going to say next. I'll pop this story in here then, because I think it's very timely. Probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was on a webinar, and there was a head of resourcing in an international engineering firm on the same call as me. And she was sharing a story that recently they've suddenly started to see a huge uptake in applicants from China, and that really confused them because China's only just started to come out of lockdown. Things aren't economy isn't that stable, so they started to ask all the applicants, why are you applying to us? And the feedback that they were getting from applicants was, our organisations treated us so badly during the pandemic, we just now want to leave. We don't want to work here anymore. So, which was great for this engineering organisation because they were in a very particular niche sector. So that's really great, all these people are wanting to work for us. But it was because of the way that they were treated. So the employee experience was driving them to leave the organisation, even in a recession where there weren't that many jobs. People were still more than happy to say, "Had enough, I'm leaving." So let's last couple of comments we've got from Emma. Yeah, COVID has accelerated this move, being more flex. Yes, I do think you're right, Emma. And it's not just about the hours in the office anymore, it's about the output of the job. Yeah, those that stick to worked hours are in danger of losing out on talent and risking their business. I couldn't agree with you more, Emma. Despite this climate of we're going into a recession, all of these challenges were there before COVID, they will be there after COVID. And the fact that we are in a recession, recessions will come to an end. But it's those organisations now that think about how they treat their employees will come out stronger the other side, which is part of the reason why I'm saying this is more than just reboarding. So if you weren't yet thinking about your employee experience, the skills that your people have in the organisation, how do we make them more flexible? If you weren't thinking that before, we really need to think about it now. Because we started to talk there in the chat box about employee experience and employee engagement, I'll just shift on and talk a little bit about that and come back to the comments as well. What do we mean by the employee experience and employee engagement? They're two things that are kind of used interchangeably. Well, I came across this research just this week by Gartner, and that figure you see on the screen there, it's dollars because most things are American these days in the research. $2,420. That is the average spend that the organisations in this piece of research spent on things, in inverted commas, to enhance their employee experience. What were the kind of things they were spending that money on? Working policy, flexible working, nice looking offices, training, events, activities, food, all the stuff that we think, oh right, that's what should be that should make up a good employee experience, the stuff and the activities. But interestingly, that same piece of research showed, if we think about that as a kind of a return on investment, only 13% of the employees in that piece of research reported being fully satisfied with their experience at work. And this is why I think it is, because if we just think about employee experience as these types of programs and events that are costly, simply investing in these programs isn't enough. The research found that when organisations meet their employees' experience, their expectations, they obviously see a boost in effort and productivity. But by taking this approach and this thought to the employee experience as being activities and stuff that we do, we're just driving up employee expectations. The more we give people in terms of stuff like that, the more they expect, right, well, I've got that, now I want more, and now I want more. Which wasn't an easy message for me as an HR professional to kind of, that's not very nice, what do you mean by that? But if we shifted our thinking about what is the employee experience, if we're investing everything that we think about the employee experience in these activities, as soon as you deliver them, yeah, people have had it and now they want something more and they want something different. The employee experience is more than just activities. And we do see some of the most engaged and positive employees in some of the smallest cash tight businesses that can't afford to do all of this stuff. So what is the employee experience? What will really drive your employees' engagement, level of productivity? Where do we now need to start thinking about the employee experience? not in these types of activities. Instead, this is the kind of, for me, the real stuff that drives the employee experience. What we as employees experience on a day-to-day basis. And I think the stuff that we can do right now is, let's go back to the start and let's be really upfront and honest about this deal. What's it like to work here? What can we do for you? What we do expect from you in return? By outlining those kind of expectations for both parties, like an adult, that's going to help you then manage this ever-increasing expectation cycle. Don't get into trying to, lay on the best buffets, having more and more night activities. That's not what people want. They want you to be honest. This is what it's going to be like when I work on if you become a work for us here. And then really dig into understanding individuals' skills, aspirations, and enjoyments. I will say, ditch your global employee engagement survey that is anonymous and that just produces lots of data. We need to work more on this one-on-one relationship between the manager and the employee so that they really understand the people that work for them. Simple things like career conversations, which don't need to be highfalutin. It's just this conversation of, hey, Rhiannon, where do you want to go next? What do you want to do? And thinking back to a career path as the line I kind of showed you earlier on. So it's not what's the next promotion for you or where's my next step up. It's kind of understanding more about your aspirations, your skills. Where can we take you next? What's the next piece of learning or the next role you want to do? How can we make this more interesting for you? Which then, move into making this internal movement easier. So sometimes in HR, we put these really big gates in place around applying. You can't apply for jobs if you haven't been in a role for so long. If we want to encourage this moving around more fluidly, giving a positive employee experience, take away some of those boundaries. Here's a big one, and I'll just give it one little box. Leading with empathy in mind. Yesterday I was on a call where someone from Santander, the bank, was talking about, he was head of global employee experience, but he'd been in a branch recently, and he was giving this example of a cashier who had said they had seen this guy come in and he had bagfuls of coins, and they thought was, oh my God, we're going to have to count all of those dirty coins and money right now in the middle of a pandemic. We've got queues everywhere. This is going to take ages. Oh my God, I don't want to do this. But then this cashier then said to him, but then I kind of changed my thoughts, and I thought, my God, this man, he needs to put this money in his account for some reason. So they struck up a conversation, and he was explaining that he has to get cash into this account because some of his bills were going out. The moral of the story was the cashier originally thought, oh my God, this is going to be awful. I don't want to do this. It's putting me at risk. And then she put her kind of empathetic glasses on and thought, I wonder why he's doing this right now in the middle of a pandemic. I wonder why he's coming in. And led their behaviour with empathy. So rather than making assumptions, we try to empathise with what's happening for that other person. So that's the kind of stuff that really drives employee experiences, and learning in the flow of work, so that every day it's okay to learn. And it's okay if I made a mistake, because I learn from that. Someone gives me feedback. This is the kind of stuff that really does drive the employee experience and doesn't cost $2,500 per person per head. But it does mean us thinking about our organisations, some of our traditional HR processes and activities, and some of the way that we have traditionally led and managed people. Just needs a slight change, but this is the stuff that will really drive the employee experience. So let me just quickly see, have I missed anything in the chat box? This is the bit that I always find difficult, running the session and looking at the chats. So Emma, I think about accelerating the move to being more flexible. Yes, I think we've talked about that. But interestingly, Claire then talked about the attitudes have changed for employees. They now expect to be able to work from home and have time on furlough, or have time to consider their meaning of life and retraining. Well, yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Claire. That, and if anything, that just kind of shows that's what people want and expect right now. And we can find it frustrating. We can say, okay, how do we deal with that? How do we accommodate that? And yes, that's interesting. People feeling braver to take a leap into the gig economy, because in the gig economy, that's okay. We do risk a huge amount of income and security, but we get that opportunity. So maybe I think there, Claire, what you're kind of saying, maybe reinforces what I've just said there about the real stuff that's driving the employee experience isn't these set experiences, more about how we deal with people on a day-to-day basis and enable them to do and be what they want. Well, look, I really appreciate this is hard, because you're doing this balancing act here, and this doesn't just apply, I think, to people professionals or HR professionals. It applies to anybody that has to manage people and drive and be responsible for driving an organisation's growth as well. How do we get this balance right? We do need to reboard people, bring them back to work safely. We do need to cut costs, and we probably are at some point going to be making redundancies. How do we balance that with making sure we've got growth plans in place, we've got a customer plan, we're making investments? It is really hard, but it's not impossible. And I have waited. I had done that little picture deliberately with a slight increase in the weight in that growth plan, the customer plan, because we do need to get ourselves into the shape where we can compete from a cost-cutting perspective. But if we just came back to work and just cost cut, made redundancies, then what? How do we grow? So I'm hoping what I've been able to do today is just give you a bit of a flavour of some of the activities to have on your agenda, as well as the reboarding, and hopefully show you that it actually isn't rocket science, and it isn't really difficult stuff to do. It's challenging getting that balance right, but we can do it. Interestingly, what am I hearing my clients? What are my clients coming to me and saying, this is what we need right now? What are we being asked to work on? We are seeing this balance. Yes, I'll be frank, my work is so much quieter than it ever has been, but people are still, organisations are still coming and saying, look, we need some help developing managers to actually lead people, not just manage situations. We do want to understand our people's skills, aspirations, their enjoyment factors. We do want our teams to work together, break down those barriers, because we've created quite a siloed organisation. And we do want to know how engaged our people are and what on earth to do about it. So the interest and the desire is still out there. And this is the kind of stuff that we could help you with if you want to also. So whether this is on, if this is on your agenda and these are the kind of areas that you want to either persuade your organisation or persuade your clients to start thinking about, I would say do give me a call. After my 20 odd years working in the corporate world, kind of come across, how do we build business cases? How do we persuade people? It is really hard work. But hopefully I've kind of shown you that if we don't start to think about these things in parallel with reboarding, then we're going to get back into the office and get back into the workplaces, and having resized our organisations and then have nowhere to go. So as a kind of a finishing off, COVID, I don't think has changed our world. I think it just accelerated the changes that were happening already. And we would be a little bit foolish if we didn't go back and remind ourselves of the changes and the challenges that we had before, and do our utmost to persuade our organisations and our clients to still think about those. Naturally, I would say it would be lovely to talk to some of you more about what your organisations or your clients are doing and trying to do right now. Love to hear from you. Reach out to me, let me know. Let's talk about what it is you're trying to do. And if you want to have something that kind of kickstarts the interest, and that would be a good thing to do. What I'm doing at the moment is a free emotional intelligence overview report for yourselves, for your clients, for your organisations. It's very, very simple to do, but that might help you with some of the persuasion you need to do with your organisations or your clients. So reach out, let me know if that will be of interest. And I hope today has been of interest and has given you some things to think about. So thank you very much for your listening and your interaction today. I will send the slides and the recording and webinar out to everybody, and it'll go on the YouTube page. And hopefully I will see you all and speak to you again soon. Take care and stay safe. See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Bye.
Thank you.